Hello everyone, welcome back to this van build. Now if you watched our last episode you will have seen us installed a Lavina 5 kilowatt diesel heater into the van under where the fridge is going in the kitchen, and last week we got that working and hot air comes out and we now have heating in the van. So we've got the electrics, we've got the air heating, now we need hot water. So in this van we're going with no LPG, so no LPG for the cooking, that's all done through electric, and for the heating it's a diesel heater rather than an LPG heater. So for the hot water we don't want to install gas just to do hot water, because there are a lot of versions of heaters that can do hot water that run on LPG, but there's not many that can do it on diesel power. Now in our original van build in Melanie we went with a diesel hydronic heater which heats liquid up, and that gets done through a plate heat exchanger. So essentially the coolant that heats up can then heat hot water up. Very convenient. However, those heaters are very expensive compared with the Chinese diesel air heaters that we installed last time, and also they're a completely different system. So you don't have hot air that comes out of the heater, you have a hot liquid and then you need to pipe that around and bring it through different plate exchangers and so on. And most people in their vans have a diesel air heater instead. So we were then looking at what type of things we can use to heat hot water in a camper van that has no LPG. So there are a few different options that you can go with if you don't want to replace your heater with a hydronic heater. So the first version is you can go just electric heating. You can just get a standard tank, get an electric element inside, either 12 volt or 230 volt, and just run it off the inverter and then just heat water electrically. The problem with that is that those heaters take an extraordinarily high amount of power to heat hot water. On average it takes around 50 to 60 amp hours of power to heat 10 litres of water up to around 60 degrees. Now that may not seem like much, but if you're doing that every single day, especially in winter when you're not recharging your batteries, that can eat into your battery bank, especially if you only have a small one and especially if you don't have lithium. So the other ways that you can heat water through your van without using LPG is there are some combi boiler products out there, Truma being the most well known. So these Truma heaters basically have a 10 litre hot water tank inside, but also have a diesel burner that can provide not only the hot air but also the hot water as well. The problem with the Trumas is that they're about £1,500 to £2,000 for the unit, which is a lot. You can generally pick up the cheapest of Chinese diesel heaters, which we went through with last video, for around £100. Our heater costs around £250 for a slightly better, more brand recognisable diesel heater, but even so that's still over £1,000 cheaper than going with a Truma system. The downside is that you don't get hot water out of it, and this is where the Bobil van's hot water kit comes into play. Essentially what it does is it has your hot water tank here. This is a 10 litre insulated hot water tank with electric elements inside, so you can heat water electrically, but it also utilises a heat exchanger, but instead of using the heat exchanger as per our original van in Melanie, which was a liquid to liquid heat exchanger, this basically takes the hot air that blows out of our diesel heater. You put these adapters on the side, the hot air blows straight through, and inside this heat exchanger there's a very small copper pipe that wiggles its way through, and essentially you pump water in the top, it wiggles its way through, heats up, takes the heat out of the air, comes out and goes into the tank. So before we be touching any of that, I'll just give you a quick rundown of where the plumbing system is at the moment. So we've got our shower, but we've got no controls or anything like that. It's just a blank wall. We've got our cold water tank, which is installed but is empty, completely empty. The only thing that I've done is added the connection point onto it. And then we've got the garage area, which is where most of that is going, along with our cold water pump and our accumulator, and then all the pipe work as well. Now I will say, out of electrics, heating and plumbing is the one that I usually hate the most and know the least about and dislike the most, because electrics is just wires and you can turn the system off to work safely and such and such. With plumbing, whilst you can also turn the system off and have no water running through everything, the moment that you turn the system on, you can just get water leaking everywhere, which is not fun and I don't like. But anyway, so yeah, TLDR, I don't like plumbing. So we've got the basic of the plumbing set up. So we've got all the John Guest 12mm T-pieces going to the various points. So we've got a stop valve, that will go to the sink. This will come to the Bobil tank and that goes to the shower mixer, which is not in position fully, but that's how it will look. Those out the way. The sink's not in place, so I'll leave that one at the moment. So this one comes to the Bobil tank, but it's not as simple as just connect that to there. What we actually have to do is something like this. So we've got our connection from the cold water line, and then essentially we create a loop between three elements: the heat exchanger, the tank, and then a small little circulation pump, and then this is our hot water line that comes off that will go to the sink and the shower. So let's get into plumbing. Step 2 is to get this pump assembly constructed. So as such, I need to arrange the parts to look like that. There we are. Pump done. Step 3, make this out of silicone pipe and a inlet valve. That's the inlet hose. Now comes the heat exchanger. So before I put the second one of these ones on, I've got to put this temperature sensor in between the ducting like that, according to the instructions. Put that there. There we go. With everything assembled, I now basically need to make the system look like that. So I need to connect the heat exchanger to the tank to this pump piece back to the heat exchanger. On the other end of the T, connect it to the cold water line coming in, and then this part is the hot water line that comes out. Now on a diagram it looks quite nice and neat. In real life it's a little bit more like 3D Tetris. I think it might be easier if I just assemble this and then lead you through it, because I'm going to be in the way here. Right, it's been a few hours, days, but either way, I've taken the shelf off to give easier access. Everything is in. So we've got our main water tank, water comes out, up to our 20 psi pump, short piece of pipe up to our accumulator, so this thing will take the expansion as the pressure changes and also smooth out the water flow out the tap to stop the pump turning on every 5 seconds. We've got an isolator valve, and then we come up. So we've got a couple of T's. So we've got the first T, and that goes off under there to the sink, or the sink tap, I should say. Then the other T goes into the shower mixer, which currently is unwaterproofed. So that's the cold water line, and then the third line comes up and around into another isolator valve, and then comes into the Bobil hot water system. So I'll try to explain this as best as I can, because I like seeing visual representations rather than diagrams sometimes. So we've got the cold water comes in here, follows this black pipe down to that T-piece, and then it splits off. You've got one section that will come into one side of the heat exchanger. Then if I come on top, you've got another pipe that comes out the opposite side of the heat exchanger. Comes down and under, as you can see there, down and under. Comes round here and goes into the tank. This thing here is an overpressure valve and a drain valve. So this is a drain line, this clear hose, if I wanted to ever drain the tank. But either way, goes into the tank, comes out the hot water outlet of the tank, and down here. And then from here it splits off. So one section goes into the pink pipe down to the small pump, up, yeah, hard to see, but up, all the way back to that initial T-piece and then back into the exchanger. So it does a loop, essentially, a big loop. And then the other part of that piece goes up, around, and then it joins on to our hot water, which is the red pipe. That comes up, half goes to the shower and half goes to the tap in the sink. So that's the basis of the plumbing side of the Bobil system, and that basically means that water will circulate between the heat exchanger and the tank, heat exchanger and the tank, and so on and so on, and slowly warm itself up until the water is up to temperature. Then that little pump stops and you've got 10 litres of hot water sitting in that tank. And then basically when you open the tap, the water will come out of the hot water, out the pump, up and out either the sink or the shower, and the tank will refill itself because it's a pressurized tank, so the pump will refill the tank. So now we've done the plumbing side of the system, all the pipes are connected up. Now we get to the electrical side of the Bobil system, which involves using the new, or relatively new, smart controller, which can not only control the hot water tank and the 12-volt element that's inside that tank, but it can also connect to the Lavina Pro diesel heater that we've installed to turn that on and off. It can give us water levels for the freshwater tank and the grey water tank, which will go underneath, and a lot of other neat stuff. So let's have a look at how to install this. Now it comes to installing the actual controller itself, now that the plumbing all back there is complete. So what I've actually done is pre-run all the wires, and I'm going to lead you through how to wire this actual controller here, because there's quite a few connections, and when you look in the instructions, let's just get to it. When you look in the instructions, you're met with this, which, whilst it's relatively simple to follow, there are quite a lot of different connections all going to different places, and I know sometimes looking at this can be a little overwhelming, so I'm going to go wire by wire of where everything connects to. So the first wire is this one, which says auto term. So this is the wire if you have an auto term heater that connects to the board here at the top. Now, since we have a Lavina Pro heater, which is a Chinese diesel heater, we do not want to connect anything here. So the next connection we've got is from the relay. Essentially, we've got a power wire running from the tank itself, so it comes out the tank and it goes into the top port of the relay, and then we've got the bottom port of the relay that goes back to the fuse board. So this provides power to the 12-volt element. Then we've got the negative of the tank that just goes directly straight to the negative of the fuse board. And then we've also got two wires, it doesn't matter which way round, on either side of the relay that connect to the actual board here. There we go. So that is the relay down there connected to the board. The next one that we want to connect is the pump. So this is the small circulation pump that comes in the kit, not your main freshwater one, like so. The next one that we've got is power to the unit. So this powers the whole board, the little pump and all the bits. So we've got ground there, B+ is positive. So what I've got, this connects to our main fuse box, and it will have a 2 amp fuse in, but at the moment it's blank because I'm working on the electrics, so that just goes to power. Just like the diagram, we've got power to the fuse board. There we are. So that's power. So that's these connections done. We're not connecting the heater because we don't have an auto term. We've got the relay connected, which powers the 12 volt element in the tank. We've got the little circulation pump connected, which circulates water around the heat exchanger, and then power. So the next connectors I'm going to do is these ones around here. So the first one that we've got is servo. So this connects to the diverter. So here's the diverter. So the hot air blows out of here, and essentially there's a flap inside. So either the air can blow out and into the van, so it can heat the van, you know, as a normal diesel air heater would, or you can have it diverting to the heat exchanger to heat your hot water instead. And this little servo controls that flap electronically based upon what you put in the controller. So there's a little cable and there's an extension as well in the kit. So I've connected the brown on the servo to black on the extension, and then simply we plug that into the board. So B for black on the board will get plugged into the B for brown as I'm using the extension, like so. Cool. There we are, black on the top. Okay. Then the next parts that we've got are the sensors. So we've got 2 sensors here. One that comes from the heat exchanger and one that comes from the tank. So the one from the heat exchanger is the one, let me get some light in here, is the one that we put in the ducting when we first installed it. So that one comes out from the heat exchanger. I've let it here, and this is the one from there, and that goes into duct on the board like so. So we'll just plug that into duct, and then the other one comes from the actual tank. So on the tank by the cold water inlet there's a little connector surrounded by some kind of white and red shrink to protect it, and since my one doesn't actually reach, what I've done is I've had to cut and extend the wire from the tank all the way here. So what I've done, this is the wire that comes from the tank, bundled it up there, and I've attached the plug that came in the kit back on the end. So this is the one from the tank, and that one can just plug into tank like so. Finally, before we actually connect the 2 controllers together, we've got level sensors. Now I opted for level sensors, and what these do is measure the level of water that's in your fresh tank and also can tell you when your grey tank is full. So I haven't installed the grey tank yet, so I'm actually going to leave that one blank at the moment. And the fresh tank is this 100 litre wheel arch tank here. And what I've done is I've installed the level sensor on the other side of this tank at the deepest part, and I've got a 600mm level sensor. So I just drilled a hole and popped the level sensor in there, and then again extended the wires. So now we've got 2 wires from the level sensor. The positive and negative don't matter for this, and they just go on the level sensor side of the controller. And then the final thing to do is connect this yellow RG45 cable from the slave board of the controller where all the wires are, so from that board there, to the main control board, which is this one here, and just connect a cable. So I've got cable there, so we will plug this in like so, and that runs under there, around there, up, and this is where all the controller's going to live. So that just needs to connect onto that. So there we are, that's all connected there, and that's the main controller connected. Now the final 2 cables are temperature sensor cables. There's one that says internal there, and then the other one's an external temperature. That basically gives you the internal and external temperature of the ambient air in the van. So I'll connect those after I've got everything up and running. We've got everything connected up, so now I'm just going to pop the fuses back in the fuse board, and we can give this a whirl and turn it on. So final thing, we're just going to change the heater type. So to change the heater type, we just use the down arrow, and we want to put it on Lavina Pro Celsius 60 degrees, because we've got a Lavina Pro diesel heater. And the final thing that we're going to do is connect the Bobil smart controller to the actual Lavina Pro controller, so that the smart controller can control the diesel heater. So we need to first of all put the Chinese diesel heater into Hertz mode. There we are, we're on Hertz mode, so it says put it all the way down. That's as low as it goes, 1.7. And then essentially what we're going to do, because most of these Chinese diesel heaters come with this little key fob remote so that you can turn the heater on and off remotely. What the Bobil smart controller does is essentially hijack into the system, and instead of using the key fob to turn the heater on and off, the Bobil heater controller will turn the heater on and off. So essentially we need to pair this with the Bobil controller so that the Bobil controller can turn the heater on and off. So it says each one is slightly different, but essentially we want to get HFA mode appearing on the heater controller. Then if you start the water heating routine, the controller will listen out for the radio signal, and when it reaches it, it will pair the two devices. So HFA mode. Okay, so for the Lavina one, because I looked this up just now, it said press and hold the down arrow for 2 seconds. So 1, 2, HFA. Right, so now we go here and we go to water heating and go on. There we are. So it started the diesel heater. You can hear that whirring away. The heater's now on, so all the air is being blown up into the heat exchanger up there. So the diverter on the back, see that little arm in there, that's basically pushing it. So no air is coming out here, and it's all actually coming out the back there. All the little pump is working and everything, and on the screen, as you can see, the water temperature is rising. So we've got 17.9, 18.1 degrees. That's the water inside the tank. So we're just going to see how long it takes to heat the water up. Cool, so it's been, what, 15 minutes? And we're up to 43 degrees on the hot water front. So since the sink isn't currently connected to anything on the drain side, let's go test it in the shower.
Whoa. Can I have my shoes?
That's the wrong foot. There you go.
It's proper then.
That's pretty warm at the back of here.
Good, less risk of mold and other stuff.
Yes, so the overpressure valve is working as expected. It's got a little, as the water heats up, it needs to expand somewhere, so that takes the expansion. That will just drain straight out of the van into the grey tank. But yeah, right, shower, because I can drain this outside the van. Ready?
Yes.
If I turn it all the way hot. Ready? Well, that was uneventful.
What?
Oh, it's got stop valving.
Please don't point it at me. Oh, it's warm.
There we are.
Warm.
Oh.
There you go. Take our word for it, it's warm. Oh, look, steam.
Oh. I mean, it's July, there shouldn't really be steam.
It's 16 degrees. No, it's not yet 16 degrees.
Oh, look at that. I may need to turn the pressure of the pump up, but I'll do that later. We have hot water in the van. Success. I'm not taking a shower.